Welcome to our first edition of Tiger Connect, a virtual networking event. The Kansas City chapter of the Mizzou Alumni Association is bringing you this evening's event. I'm Diane O'Byrne, current president of MAA-KC. We hope you'll join us for other local events and become an active member of our KC Mizzou community. Check out our Facebook page or our website for updates, and we'll be sending you those links following tonight's event. Currently, we're hosting online workouts. Join us next Tuesday for Tiger Tuesday, live workouts on our Facebook page. You'll get a workout, trust me. I want to thank all of those who sent in questions prior to this evening. But for those of you who didn't, you are welcome to use the chat function or the Q&A function, and we'll do our very best to get all your questions answered. I'm delighted tonight to introduce our moderator, Mizzou grad, Michelle Harmon. She's Chief Strategy Officer for Ludi Inc., a healthcare technology and physician advocacy firm. Michelle has extensive experience in coaching young job seekers, as well as serves as an executive coach for business leaders throughout the country. She's been named one of the 100 women in health IT to know. So I'm delighted we'll get to know her tonight. Michelle?
Thanks, Diane, and thank everyone for attending today. We have a lot of knowledge to impart, but this is also casual, informal, and please ask questions as you see fit. It's my pleasure to introduce three panelists. I'm going to talk about our first panelist, Mr. Jon Cook, who's going to go first and talk about his point of view about COVID and the job market and how it's impacting his world. Jon is the global CEO at VMLY&R, a global marketing force with more than 6,500 employees, 6,500,000 employees. He has a list of blue chip clients, and they connect brands with creativity, technology, and data. Jon graduated from the School of Journalism and is incredibly excited because his daughter is following in his footsteps, and she will be a sophomore at Mizzou in the fall. Jon, with that, I'd like to turn comments over to you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. And I think we're each just gonna say a few minutes of things, just a quick build on that nice introduction. But first of all, just thanks for having me, Diane and Michelle. And secondly, congrats. I know there's a lot of people who have just graduated. Congratulations. Such a weird time to graduate and go into the world. But I hope we in this panel we can help ease any concern you have about that and amp up the excitement that you have about it, which I'm sure you do. So congratulations to those of you who've just graduated. As Michelle said, I think my angle tonight comes from the only field I really know, and that's advertising. I've been doing that since I graduated. I was in the J school, and it wasn't called strategic communications at the time. It was called advertising. It's all I ever wanted to do was work in an ad agency. Mizzou did a great job of preparing me for that, and so I'm kind of living that dream. We get to be leading a global ad agency, but doing that right here from where I grew up, and that's in Kansas City, where I grew up. So I love that. I'm happy to bring that perspective to everything in this panel. I think we'll each talk about the industries that Stephanie and Aaron and I represent a little bit and how they're thinking about things, both in the panel and then a few minutes right now. But in terms of the advertising industry, it's a very dynamic time because an advertising agency is one that's based on doing work for all other brands. So we've had to learn the impact of COVID-19 on almost every category you can imagine, from the really hard hit, like the travel clients we have in airlines and hotels and things like that, to ones who are actually doing really well, like packaged goods. We work with Kraft Heinz and Colgate and lots of other Dannon. They're all, people are still buying food, so that's good. But so there's ups and downs in the categories that you'd expect. But I think the industry's been about learning new ways to connect with people and new ways to connect brands. And I think you've seen your share of brands that have done that very irrelevantly and just trying to be out there with a generic message, and some that have been out there with messages that are right on point and not generic for these times. We've one of our largest clients is Wendy's. We do all the advertising, and Wendy's and have gotten somewhat famous in our little world for the social media of Wendy's and developing their Twitter voice and all that. And hopefully you've followed some of that. But one thing we've done recently that was really cool was we I think it was the largest promotion in the history of Postmates, was a free Nuggets giveaway. Because we can't have hugs right now, we did Nugs for Hugs, or a group Nug, and gave away, I think, 14 million Nuggets a couple Fridays ago, and did a big partnership with Postmates. And it was all a way to not just give away free Nuggets, but to activate the awareness that Wendy's is open, and open big time with delivery services and drive-throughs. So hopefully you saw some of that. It's as crazy, as hard as COVID-19 has been, there's some fun things going on. Wendy's has been hit with a big beef shortage in a couple of the restaurants you may have read about. For that, we turned to a campaign we did in the New York Times called "Where's the Beef?" We went back to one of their first ad campaigns, and this was not about where is it. It was, hey, we've had a little bit of a beef shortage, but we're not going to sell out and use frozen beef from Mexico like the competitors. We're going to stick to our principles and wait till we have good non-frozen beef for you. So it's been fun navigating through that. And you think about an ad industry, you have to produce a lot of content and commercials and things. We've had to learn new ways to do that. You can't just go be on a set right now. So we've had to think of new ways to shoot things and to be on productions. And that's been all virtual. I can get into that as much as you care to do. But I would say that there's with all the excitement of that, it is an industry that's hit hard. And so there have been a lot of layoffs, furloughs, all sorts of things. If you look into Ad Age or Ad Week, the two publications that follow this industry in America, you'll find all sorts of hard hit ad agencies. We've been more fortunate than a lot of them, but still it's hard. But I would say, if I'm being really honest, that you've got, as people are changing the shape and the size of their agencies for this, it's been a good opportunity to sweep out a lot of the stuff in this industry that we didn't need. A lot of people who, probably hanging on irrelevantly or just writing jobs too long. Industry's famous for having a lot of that in it. People who are clinging to the past way of advertising. And if I see a positive in that for those looking for opportunities, I think ad agencies are looking for people to come in and be more efficient, more powerful, more Swiss Army knife, more relevant, more contemporary, more energetic. Our industry needs it, so it needs you. And I think I look at it as a big opportunity right now in our industry. It's a great industry, and I can't wait to talk about it more. Thanks for having me. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Jon. That was really insightful. We are going to pivot to Stephanie Deere, and she is coming to us from Healthcare IT. I've had the pleasure of knowing Stephanie for over 30 years. She's a very important person to me, very talented. She's the Director of Population Health Strategy for Cerner. Stephanie's responsible for developing and implementing population health strategies for large health networks. She provides advice, expertise to assist clients in solving complex business challenges and improving business performance. She is a graduate of Mizzou's Business School. With that, Stephanie, take it away with your comments.
Well, first I'm going to start with thanks for the introduction, Michelle. Michelle was actually my babysitter. She started babysitting me when I was an infant. So when you talk about that 30 years, that's why she has known me so long. So just want to get that on there for the record.
Oh, nice.
All right, so COVID in the job market, this is one of those things. This has been obviously a huge impact on the entire world, across the entire board. I mean, I don't think there's really anybody who wasn't impacted by this from some way or another. But you kind of have to put some of these things into context. Is I look at it that this is an ice storm, and when you look at the impact of something like this on businesses, some companies are going to suffer greatly, and some companies are will not probably survive at all. I think that we will see, unfortunately, quite a few businesses that don't survive this. But then others just need a little bit more time. And frankly, there are still some in the world that are actually thriving right now just because of the nature of work that they do. I do personally have friends outside of Cerner who have lost jobs, particularly those who had recently made moves into new jobs. I've had a few of those that were impacted. But most of the buddies that I have, they're not curling up saying, wow, it's over. There's nothing out there. Nobody's hiring, because that's not true. The jobs are out there, and the companies that either need a little bit more time, or the companies that that are thriving, the process to find good people is actually really hard. And so those processes are ongoing all the time. And you know, if you are in a position where you're trying to figure out what's next, whether it's a next step in your career ladder or early career, maybe this is your first job, you've got to get out there and you've got to kind of to shake out the noise and figure out where they are still hiring, because like I said, it is out there. If you're watching the markets, the stock markets, you can see, I mean, every day it's kind of an up and down, but the markets are edging up. People want to get back to a normal. So I think that there is evidence that, you know, how long will it last? Nobody knows. I mean, flip a channel and everybody's got an opinion. But there is a lot going on in a lot of corners of the world. For Cerner, it is, you know, I as a consultant, it's kind of clipped my wings. I'm not on an airplane every other week like I normally was. A lot of times I'm sitting in this chair with these headphones on this computer, and I'm doing conference calls. I do a lot of video calls. I do a lot of telephone calls. But it is still work that is going on, and as such, you know, Cerner still has over 500 open positions that we're still hiring for, from software and business engineers, or software and system engineers, to analytics and business analysts, to consultants. We are hiring. Particularly in early career, Cerner is actually one of the I think major recruiters from Mizzou, and it's all kinds of background. It's not just those that have a healthcare background, while we do hire a lot of doctors and nurses, and it's not just engineers, people who are hands-on keyboard doing programming or setting up hardware or systems, but it's also business people. That's my background. I actually, after I got out of school, found my way into the computer field. I was a software instructor for a long time before I landed at Cerner. And you know, there are all kinds of opportunities depending upon what your background is, what your interests are. I recently, just here over the last couple months, I have actually had to hire a couple people for my team to supplement some open roles that we had. My division is still growing. I'm in the federal population health space, and have need to continue the growth on those teams, because we will come out of this. I think the confidence is high that, you know, we've already spent billions of taxpayer dollars to implement a new system, and we are on the doorstep of turning that thing on. You don't stop now. We are on pause, but when I say we're on pause, guess what? My engineers are still sitting at home putting code in the systems, and we're building it out. We still do have conversations with the clients. They're just on the phone now. So I do mean to encourage you that there's a lot of opportunity that's still happening, and you just again, you kind of have to figure out what kinds of things that do you think you might want to do, and then do a little bit of footwork to see where those things are. Turn it back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Stephanie. Very encouraging. So our next power panelist is Aaron Israelite. Aaron is the Senior Vice President with BOK Financial Services. He provides investment services and customized wealth management solutions for affluent individuals, trusts, charitable foundations, and employee benefit providers. He earned his undergraduate degree from Mizzou's Business School and is also the proud father of a 2020 Mizzou grad. Aaron, take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Welcome all Tiger friends out there, and thanks for asking me to participate. I'm getting this message that says my internet is unstable, so I don't know. Hopefully you can hear me and it's not breaking up. It's worked great all day, but maybe the three boys I have are on PlayStation or something, and it's messing some things up. But hopefully you can hear me. Have a Mizzou graduate. We had a nice backyard ceremony for her instead of normal in Como, but it is what it is. So we got through it. She graduated communications and has a job starting in July for that. I'm going to go kind of quick. I do have a lot of things I did before the call is get on the phone with our HR, specifically the college recruiting area, and the area that higher. So there's several bullet points they pointed out to me. I want to make sure I get through those. The good news is, as you would expect in Kansas City, more MU grads are getting hired than KU grads. That's why we all went to Columbia. So that's I can vouch for that. For specifics for those out looking for a job, or maybe you've had a job, a lot of my daughter's friends actually had jobs secured back in February and March, and then COVID, they got delayed until the start of 2021, and that's unfortunate. So they find themselves with a lot of downtime right now. What do I do for the next 6 months before I start my actual job? The recruiters at my company said the most common question that they're getting is, and unfortunately, I don't think anybody has a great answer to that. So I don't have any going to change, and we're going to get back to normal. Currently, all our interns, everybody that we have hired have been kept on, so there hasn't been any firings. And again, this is across the financial services industry. I think for the most part, banks and other financial institutions are keeping on employees. They're just having to do things differently. And that means research projects. That means a lot of virtual content. So just a little different way. Currently, we have, and a big reason for that is just the short-term uncertainty. And also, it's kind of a tough onboarding process for those that come on and they start their first 60, 90, 120 days at home. It's not a great experience for those that we onboard. What to do during this time? This seems like kind of simple advice, but they couldn't stress it more. You got to stay connected. You got to stay connected with all your contacts, all your referral sources, all your centers of influence, much as we used to, right? Stay connected virtually with phone calls. Emails are okay, but they're not as minutes a day. Find 5 people that are willing to do a call with you for 15 minutes and continue to network like you did pre-COVID, and keep your contacts out there. One of their biggest suggestions was if you're on LinkedIn. Apparently LinkedIn is a unbelievable, I'm on it, but I don't think I use it nearly to the effectiveness as a lot of people do. But they say LinkedIn right now is where most recruiters are going to look at stuff. So keep your LinkedIn updated. And in your downtime, they can't stress enough, add skills. Profile, what recruiters are looking for in this industry right now. Do external training, perfect your Excel especially, but Word and PowerPoint. All these things that you can do, and then as you add them to LinkedIn, you become more of a commodity to the people that are hiring. They stress think how business is going to change, and we all see this, I think, every day. How is business changing? You look at this, the stock market was mentioned. Look at the companies that are succeeding in the stock is affecting the financials as well. So think about how business is changing, and intentional about how you can adapt your skill set to doing that. You have to get great at marketing yourself, right? I mean, even for those that have been doing this, I'm in a business development role at my bank. you got to figure out how to get really good at marketing yourself virtually during these times and probably for some time to come. And so that's something to keep on your mind. Here's one big thing that the college recruiter told me is reach out to the recruiters. They want to hear from you. Don't be scared to reach out weekly and stay in touch and just get an update on the lay of the land. When do you think you're going to start hiring again? What jobs are you seeing? I don't be shy to reach out to recruiters. In your downtime, obviously, do something productive. Establish your work ethic. I think when we all go back, and recruiters are going to want to see, what did you do in your downtime? How did you use that to your advantage? Establish that work ethic, whatever it is that you're doing.
Tips, because they line up with suggestions that I have. So we're going to talk about some specific things here. So first of all, that's up is your resume. So I have recruited for many, many years. I recruited physicians. I recruited C-suite type of folks, and keeping it simple is key. Do not have your resume extend over 3 pages. There is no need for that. If it's starting to get long, work with someone to cut it down. If you need to have addendums, that's fine. But 3 pages is the rule. The other thing that you want to do is have someone else look at it for you. We're all moving fast. When you're constantly looking at this resume, you can miss things. You can become numb to it. So having someone that you trust, that you know will look at your resume from stem to stern is really important. The other thing that I want the audience to know, and this is an industry secret, is we don't spend a lot of time on your resume. It's about 30 seconds. So make sure it holds up in 30 seconds. So Jon can probably talk to us about this with his messaging and how to get everybody's attention. But understand that the reader is trying to figure out who you are, where you've worked, and what your talent is in a very quick way. The other thing that leads into that is the resume needs to stand on its own. So what do I mean by that? When you say, I'm going to pick on Stephanie because she picked on me. When you write on your resume, I worked at Cerner, okay? And we're all in Kansas City. We know what Cerner is, or we may not. What I want you to understand is that someone may not know what Cerner is. Let's say that you've been in healthcare and you're wanting to go into finance. It behooves you to add on your resume, after everywhere you've worked, a 1 to 3 sentence blurb about what this company is. What is Cerner? How big is it? Employers want to know, when they're looking at your resume, the size of the playground that you've experienced. So if you've worked at a mega corporation like a Cerner, or for instance, Ludi, where I work, is small stage. We only have 20 employees. This tells a recruiter, for instance, or the interviewer about the size of the playground that you're comfortable with. The other thing that's really important given these times is that you have some key words in your resume. So there can be digitized review of resumes now where there's not a live person like myself actually reading your resume. It may be fed in through a digitized reader. And so what you're going to want are key words and key phrases. How would you do that? So let's say that you are applying for an IT entry role at Cerner in population health. You're going to want to go to Cerner. You're going to want to check Cerner out, and you're going to want to check that job description out and see what they're looking for. Pull the key phrases, pull the key words, and make sure that's included in your resume. It can go within different blurbs throughout your resume, or it can be in a key skills section that you can have in the front of your resume, but that's really important. The other thing that people get shy about their resumes. This is the time where you need to get a little swagger on. So if you completed a triathlon, put that on your resume. It says something to the hiring agency about who you are. If you volunteer at the dog pound, put that on your resume. What this shows hiring companies is a little bit about who you are. and your interest. And it is important to the hiring organization to know about those types of interests. Aaron was doing such a fabulous job talking about networking. 70% of job finders find a director over population health. Don't be afraid to take a gig. It is easier to have a job and get a job with a current job in place. So this is not the time to be choosy. Employers will really pay attention to the fact that you're flexing up or down to take a role. The other thing that all the panelists and Diane alluded to was stay busy right now. Instacart is hiring. There are all sorts of jobs that COVID has created. While you're looking for the job, it says a lot to your employer that you went out and hustled, as Aaron talked about. Companies are hiring now. It's not doom and gloom everywhere. I graduated in 1991 when dragons were flying the earth and there was a huge depression happening around the United States, and I still got a job. It took a little more effort. What I will tell you guys, we will survive this. It is temporary. There are jobs to be had. I live in downtown Kansas City, and I live right by the IRS. And those folks are hiring. They have a giant banner out in front. So like Aaron said, do your homework and look into the companies such as IT Health. Luby, my company, is also hiring now. There are people moving forward in the crisis. And then another comment from our panelists, I couldn't agree more. Make it personal. Instead of texting and posting and what does my daughter do? Snapchatting. Call people. Call them on their cell phones. They're going to pick up. Everyone is feeling a little cramped these days. We haven't been let out. Stephanie just said she's grounded. This is a fabulous time to call people, ask for help, make a request, especially when you're talking to us Tiger alumni. One of the reasons that we're doing this session is because we want to help. We want to help folks like yourself to find a gig. So the other thing that I would ask you to do, and then we're going to open it up for questions to this panel, is to do your homework when you're doing a company interview and have a handful of questions ready for you to ask. An interviewee like Jon Cook wants to know that you know something about his business, and it would behoove you to go find out what they do. And one of the questions I always ask when I'm interviewing is, Jon Cook, when you hire here, what kind of person thrives in this organization? What is it that you're looking for that you know for sure works? Stephanie Deere, when you go to sleep at night, what's one of the issues that's rattling around in your brain? Talk to me about something that's keeping you up at night is a good question. Another question that I like to ask is, if you could solve one problem today, what would it be? And just going into these kinds of questions, you have the ability to set yourself apart from the field. For instance, if I had a new Mizzou grad coming to me and they said to me, Michelle, how do you see COVID-19 impacting physician payments? That's interesting. And what you want in your interviews is you want to appear that you have researched the company and that you're also got critical thinking ability. And to marry up the current pandemic with what, for instance, Ludi does and ask how we're handling that is a really good question. And then one of the things that I like to do with my interviewees and the people that I'm coaching that are looking for jobs is to close. So what does that mean? So if I'm working with Aaron and I'm interviewing and we wrap up, I say to Aaron, am I the person you need? Don't be afraid to ask that question. It shows tenacity. It shows that you're willing to get feedback immediately. And then ask if they say, you know, we're still looking. You sort of get blown off by that question. A great follow-up is, what would you see my gaps to be? Again, you can still keep yourself in the race because an interviewer is going to say, wow, look at these questions coming from Sydney. She's really interested. I better think about this again. These are some good follow-up questions. So knowing your company that you're talking to and having some really sharp, connected questions puts you at the top of the heap. All right. So now we're just going to go into general questions in chat. And this, I'm opening this up to my 3 awesome panelist folks. So one of the questions that has been asked, I think this is a good one, is that during COVID, would you suggest staying in school to get that advanced degree or entering the job market for some real life experience? Panelists?
Well, this is Stephanie. I'll take a first cut at that. You know, I think that you can go either way. You know, it's if you come in as a college grad, and that's what you've got, is you've got your 4-year degree that positions you for quite a bit of work. We do look at a combination of real world experience and education. So for example, when we do early career recruiting, and frankly, we do it across the board too, but this is generally the bigger impact for people that are earlier in their careers in this space, is real world experience can equate to a master's degree. So it's not that you have to have a master's degree. Frankly, coaching that I would give, I mean, I let Cerner pay for my master's degree, which that's nice, let them pay for it. But I still did it. I did it as much for myself as opposed to I needed it to get to a next promotion. I didn't. But I think that real world experience is great. And I think that if you could, I mean, if my corner of the world, I loved where Michelle was going with some of her comments earlier. I mean, there are a ton of jobs that are created today that you never heard of 2 months ago. Contact tracing. What the hell is that? Well, that is the chase of somebody is sick and who have they been in contact with? There are thousands. So I think it was Aaron was talking about what am I going to do for the next 6 months? My job got postponed. And so, well, maybe you could be sitting in Kansas City, Missouri, and be working for the state of New York doing contact tracing. Now, I don't really know that New York is going to hire folks from Kansas City, but this contact tracing, there are need for thousands and thousands of people to do this kind of work. So if you can find work that is kind of interest to you, great, go for it. If you can get some of that real world experience, I think that's really valuable as you start to apply, because part of what you start learning about yourself is, what do you like? You went to school for a thing, and the thing is your degree. Your degree is your ticket to the table to even get to sit down to talk to a lot of the companies. There are a lot of positions you won't even be qualified to even get to sit at the table, because in my world, we sponsor so many international cards that you can't interview for it unless you have a minimum amount of experience and or a particular degree. We have to do that because we can't find enough folks here in the US that have the skills we're looking for. So I am a fan of the real world experience. If you really know what you want to go do, great, go ahead and go invest. You know, Michelle, I know that she did her master's right back to her undergrad degree. I think that's great. For me, it had really been a waste of time because I had no idea what I wanted to do. It took me a little bit of finding and soul searching. And then when I found what I liked and what I was good at, it clicked. And for me to get my master's a little bit later, I don't think it hurt me one bit. So I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I like the real world experience, but I think Michelle would tell you that for her in her world with healthcare, she knew where she wanted to go. I think that's great too. Let one of the other guys have a shot.
Michelle, this is Aaron. My only comment would be, when I got cut off by the Comcast truck outside, I apologize about that. But I was going to finish with, whatever you do when the pandemic started, you got to wake up every day and say, I'm going to be better mentally, physically, and spiritually every day. So how do I get there this day? And then you wake up the next day and do it again. To Stephanie's point, it depends on your situation, right? I want to go back to college right now, but I can't do that at 50 years old, unfortunately. So if it works for you to stay in and get an advanced degree, and there's not financial pressure, or there's room to do that in your circumstance, sure, that'd be great. I too got out, graduated, started a job, and did my master's at nighttime while I was working, just because I was anxious to get out and start working. But I think it depends, right? Each individual's different, but I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that, echoing what Stephanie said.
Yeah, I hate to I can't build too much on that. I think our industry would be one to just get right out as fast as you can. Even if you don't finish college, I'd get right out into the industry and start working. I mean, I've looked at degrees too much as it relates to that. So I think Stephanie and Aaron said it, you know, covered most of it. I would tend to lean to just get out in the industry right now and get after it.
Michelle, you're still on mute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This is one of the questions I wanted the three of you to weigh in on, which is all things are similar between two candidates. They're the same. What are the traits that the three of you are looking for that will put one candidate ahead of the other one?
Well, simply for me, I'll go back to the interpersonal and social skills. I think that crosses almost every job there is out there. If somebody has those skills where they can communicate effectively and look people in the eye and talk and have them respond to them, I think that's, and again, it transcends industries on that. But if all things being equal, I would look for the one that had the communication and interpersonal skills more.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Aaron on that. I think I've always kind of felt like if we were at an ad agency or wherever you work, that I'd want somebody that if the ad agency blew up and we had a couple of us left, that anybody you hire could go run. We could go run a lemonade stand and make a business and be successful doing it. It would be the best lemonade stand out there. So if I was looking at the two candidates for an advertising agency position, I'd actually ask myself, which one could I go run a lemonade stand with, because they have all those skills, you know, and who could do that? That's what I'd look for. And I think you could reverse that answer as the recipient of that advice and say, how can I make myself indispensable no matter the industry? And that, I think your skills you have that would help you in that light will rise to the top as you present yourself.
You know, and I think that that's probably what I'm looking for too, is regardless if I'm hiring a senior person or entry level, and that's, I mentioned that I just hired a couple people and it was one of each. It was one that was senior and it was an entry level position. And I think that that's what I look for, kind of that underlying vein of what I'm always looking for is I am looking for team fit. I'm looking for a good attitude, a willingness to learn, kind of a confidence to work in ambiguous. We do and I think you guys are probably all trained in behavioral interviewing. Give me an example of a time when you're talking through whatever, whether it's a school project, a part-time job or whatever, doesn't really matter. And it's not what you did. I'm listening for certain skill sets. And so, you know, that's, I've always said, you know, and this kind of goes back to when I was kind of that computer instructor, and this is back when Windows was brand new and people were trying to learn how to use a mouse, and way before cell phones and all of that. But the only person I couldn't teach to do the job, because, you know, there are very few positions that we have today that you took a class on exactly how to do the jobs we have available. You don't, but you've got other skill sets. So I'm looking for you to have a little bit of confidence in what you have done and just a willingness and an attitude of, I can do it, I can fit in, I am excited. And you couple that with somebody who's done the research, and not only are you trying to convince me why you, part of what I want to know is, why do you want to come here? And I meet plenty of people who, they need a job, and that's okay. It's okay to need a job. But I really love it when they've got some sort of tie, that there's something about Cerner that's drawing the candidates to us. And I do think that that's a differentiator.
I have a question that's just for Jon. We have a student that said her job in advertising is not supposed to start until January now of 2021. She wants to know what you recommend doing in the advertising field in the meantime, so she continues to grow and learn to when her job kicks in January.
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, congratulations on having a job right now. That's impressive already, and then having it an actual start date and all that, no matter what year and month that is. Congratulations on that. I think that's great. Nice on that employer too, to be that specific about it. I kind of get that too, because people are spacing out their hires in all industries in a smart way. So I get that as well. But I would tend to go. Well, I could take it two directions. I would tend to if you had all the money in the world, I'd go just drive the country and do something you haven't been able to do. But nothing's open, so you can't do that, and you probably you may not be able to afford that just coming out of college. So I would tend to go, is there something you can do to go work for free in an advertising environment? Maybe you're taking a job on the side, but go to work at an agency and just contribute your time, and even if that's 10 hours a week to get some experience and to just before you lock into their job, I think that'd be a good thing to do. I don't know what your situation is, but you're kind of playing with house money, so to speak, because you've got that job lined up. And so maybe take a job somewhere that in advertising that you could get some additional experience. That could impress your employer. I would also, not your question, but I would spend a lot of time communicating and dialoguing with that employer for January, because I just know, as if I was the employer in that situation, you don't want them forgetting about you. Don't worry, they won't, but stay relevant, stay on it, almost act like you're working there before. Don't worry about the money and the paycheck. If they've committed to you for that, I do a lot of commitment to them, and see what you can do for them in advance. Don't ask for a penny to do it. Just stay relevant with them, stay on the radar. Just things happen, and they may have changes, and you want to be on the front line on any of those changes. So I'd stay really relevant and in touch with them. They'll really appreciate that.
That's very smart. Okay, so we've got about 12 minutes left. Miss Diane has some things she wants to share. I have one more question that's for all three of you, and let's keep our comments within 2 minutes. So this is about more seasoned folks that are looking for work. So how do the three of you view job seekers who are a bit more seasoned, been in the workforce for 20 years or more, but they're keeping their options open for career changes or different positions that are allowing for growth? What's your advice for those folks?
Yeah, I can start really quick, keeping it brief. But first of all, I think it's a good time to do that. So appreciate the question right now. I think it's a matter of evaluating a company you want to work at and looking at the depths of their jobs that aren't the obvious, because I know the industry we're in, we tend to typecast a creative person, an account management person, a research person, a media person. I would, where we've had the most success with people who've come from other industries in the situation you're describing have been when they've really looked into our organization and found those spots that are really flexible and less typecast, and just thrown themselves into that, even if it means taking a little step back in money and betting on themselves. I would do that. And I could give examples if we had time in the advertising industry, but it's that glue between all those main jobs. That's where I see the best opportunities for somebody who comes from another industry, and lean in and take a step back, bet on yourself, and you'll be ahead of the game in no time.
And I think sorry about that, Aaron.
No, go ahead.
I think the 20 plus year experienced persons, we're probably talking about Xers now. And so our generation has kind of been through a couple of the downturns where market has gotten tight. And I think that by now, you know, the boomers might have grown up in a company and that's the only place they've ever been. I don't think that's necessarily true of today's world. And so I think there is an appreciation. I think, again, it kind of comes back to having the confidence. John, I like the words you used, is being able to lean into to opportunities. And those experiences, you know, I intentionally try to hire teams that are diverse. I don't want everybody to be like me. That's not good for the team. And I've got some great people on my team, really great people, but I look for variation. And so what I really look for somebody who is more experienced is their ability to see the applicability of whatever skills they've had to the job that I'm trying to hire for. And if they can have that creativity of tie it back in, and if you can see that creativity, or if you can see those connection points and sell yourself that you are the right fit, even though it's not exactly, I think there are so many things in our skill sets today that are applicable across industries. And I think it does take, it takes an attitude, takes some confidence, and you got to be a little bit brave you got to help sell that you're the right person for that job. And I think that that's pretty appreciated when I'm looking at some of those experienced folks. Aaron?
Brief comments. I agree with John and I agree with Stephanie. I think after 20 years being in the workforce, I think we all have a much better idea of what we want to do, right? Coming out of school, we think we want to do something, but we really have no idea what that job is. Or I've spent so much time with graduating seniors that says, I think I want to do this. And then they really kind of find out what the job is. And they're like, yeah, maybe I don't want to do that. So if you've been out of the workforce for 20 years, other than lack of paycheck, if you're not working right now, I mean, what a great time to be very intentional about what you want to go do. And I think it's very much a turn on for employers to say, I've done this, but I figured out this is what I want to do, and you're the company I want to do it with. I mean, how appealing is that for somebody to come in? And to Stephanie's point, diverse skill set, great. We need it. We need your background in this because we don't have the background in that. So if you can do it and it's not too harmful on a paycheck kind of deal, what a better time after 20 years to say, I know what I want to do and I'm going to go get it, and here's who I want to do it with. So be intentional about it.
All right, Diane, I think it's your turn.
All right. I don't know how I could possibly say thank you more to everyone tonight. This was absolutely awesome. Thank you, Michelle, for moderating. I want to sincerely thank our panelists, Jon, Stephanie, and Aaron, for giving their thoughtful perspectives. Working behind the scenes, and really the idea generator for tonight is MAA KC board member Christine Rory. Thank you, Christine. As I mentioned earlier, please connect with our Alumni Association in Kansas City. We'll be sending you those links you see on your screen now, the Career Center links. I would be willing to bet most of you have not connected with the Career Center ever. And that goes for people, and the Career Center is available to you no matter when you graduated from Mizzou. So those of you with those 20 years experience, connect with the Career Center because they will be able to help you as well.